The truth about dovetailing.
The concept of dovetailing.
I want to know.
So, does everyone understand the question? What is the truth about dovetailing? Dovetailing means, actually there's not a Sanskrit word for this. Dovetail, you know, it refers to when you join two pieces of wood together, you make a shape like the tail of a dove and then they fit together like this. So two things fit together. So the closest thing we can have is, this is discussed in Bhagavad Gita. It is called the Karmarpana, offering all your activities to Krishna. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said, Yat karoshi, yat ashnashi, yat johosi dadasi, yat tapasasi tukuntaya tat kurushva madarpanam. Means whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever austerities you perform, whatever things you give away in charity and so on, do this as an offering to me. So, this is one step above the general performance of Varnashram Dharma. You can see in the conversation between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai, Mahaprabhu said to Ramananda Rai, what's the goal of life? Ramananda Rai said, Varnashrama taravataha purushena parapuman. That one should do your duties in life, in Varnashram Dharma, according to your ashram, whether you're a student or whether you are married, or whether you are retired or renounced, according to the social orders, whether you're a laborer or a priest or administrator or a merchant. I guess so, depending on what is your social and religious situation, then you should do those duties, and in this way, nanyat tattosha karanam. One can hear Vishnu aradyate panta nanyat tattosha karanam. It's from the Vishnu Purana. It's saying that there is no other way to please Vishnu than to perform your prescribed duties without attachment. Okay. When Mahaprabhu heard this, he said to Ramananda Rai, Ehovaya, this is external. Why is it external? Because the duties that you have in this life are related to your body and mind. And then this activity is not Swarupanubandhi, that means it's not really in connection with the soul. But anyway, in the performance of the duties, of the social duties, there's a little particle, a small angsa, a small part of awareness of God. Because the idea is, I'm doing my duties for the satisfaction of God. And so, the illusion of the living being, the cause of illusion is forgetfulness of God. Understand this. Everyone's consciousness is turned away from God. And so, whatever they can do that will turn their consciousness towards God, this is a positive step. And therefore, in the Vedic society, people have duties, they perform them and think, at the end, they make an offering. Oh my Lord, this I have done for your happiness. Like this. And in this way, at least they remember God. At the end of the day, perhaps. So this is a step in the right direction. But, because the activity itself is related to the designations, it's related to the artificial coverings of the soul in the form of the body and mind. Therefore, it is said it's not Swarupanubandhi, in connection with the true nature of the soul. You know, because if someone is a Brahmin, a priest, they are born in the family of a Brahmin in this life, but in the next life they can be born somewhere else. Whatever ashram you're in, your ashram can change throughout your life, of course. So all of these things, they're changeable, they're not part of the soul. So this cannot be the Nitya Dharma or the eternal occupation of the soul. So after hearing this, Mahaprabhu said, it's external, tell me something more. So after that, the performance of the Varnashram duties, Dharma, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramananda Rai suggested Karmapana, offering your karmas. And then he quoted this verse of Bhagavad Gita, Yat karoshi yadasyasi yat josi dadasi yat. So, whatever you do, offer to me. What's the difference between these two things? What's the difference?
You're thinking Krishna first rather than offering that.
You can be thinking of Krishna first. Before you do it, you can be thinking of Krishna while you're doing it. It's not just blindly doing your duties in life in total forgetfulness of God and then remembering at the end, oh, by the way, I did this for you. Another advantage of this is Yat Karosh means whatever you do. So there are so many things that we do in, say, in the duties of the Varnashram, which, there are so many things that we do which are not included in those duties of Varnashram. For example, it doesn't say that it's the duty that you have to, take a shower. It's not the duty to whatever. There may be so many things that you do, meet with your family members and things like this. There's so many activities that are not within those duties. But here Krishna is saying everything that you do, just do everything with the spirit that you're doing this for me, even activities which are outside of prescribed duties. So that's a higher thing. So that's an example of dovetailing. That means you're good at something, or you want to do something, so you do that, and you do it with the consciousness, oh my Lord, I'm doing this for you. But what's the defect in this? So now you're saying, what is the truth about dovetailing? The defect is that it's not bhakti. There's a small element of devotion in the sense that there's some remembrance of God. But the difference between karmarpana and bhakti is, in karmarpana, you do what you want to do and you offer that to God. And in bhakti, you do what God wants you to do. And that's why in between the karmarpana and pure bhakti, there's a stage called surrender. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected the karmarpana, Ramananda Rai said, oh, this is external, tell me something more. Then Ramananda Rai said, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam shanam vraja. Krishna's instruction at the end of Bhagavad Gita, hey Arjun, give up all dharmas, all responsibilities and duties related to your body and mind. And your soul, surrender to me completely. Don't worry about any karma, I'll take care of everything. Like that. So bhakti starts after surrender. After surrender. Because then we're doing what Krishna wants us to do for him, without any thought of what is the demands, the proclivities, or the tendencies of the body and mind, which is anyway just coming as a reaction of past karmas, you see, and therefore is still keeping one in the cycle of karma. So, dovetailing is like a concession. It's a preliminary offer just so a person can begin to start to awaken their awareness of God and their remembrance of God. And the result of that, it's very powerful. We described that last night about karma yoga, that the person tries to make an effort to see that the soul and God is present in everyone. That they work without meditating on the fruit of their work. And they think that the result that's coming by my activity is actually given by God. It's not that I created it myself, and neither is karma some mechanical, impersonal force, but rather Krishna himself is personally administrating my karmas to me. So if a person works in this attitude, it's extremely powerful, and very soon they become purified of the Rajagun. This is the problem. The reason someone has a karma adhikar, or an eligibility to perform karmas, is because the consciousness is contaminated by rajas. There's not a predominance of sattva yet. And without sattva gun you cannot meditate. It's impossible. Always, if sattva gun is not predominating very strongly, then the mind will be in a state of vikshep, means constant distraction. Okay? So that's the upside and the downside. Srila Jiva Goswami, in regard to the karmapana, has said, he has glorified it, saying it's very powerful. And he gave the example of Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj, when he was a king, of course, and for many years he was doing his duties as a king, but with the consciousness that the fruit is Everything that I do, the karma is kept with Krishna and comes back to me. Krishna gives it. So he was always aware of this at all time. Even though he was doing yagyas, which were actually karma kanda yagyas, for the benefit of the society. He was doing welfare work for society in the form of engaging brahmanas in yagyas and so on. But he was always thinking, okay, I'm doing this karma, and it's my duty as a king, but this karma is resting, always it goes to Krishna, and it's come back, the result is given by Krishna. And just by that remembrance, he became so purified that by the time he was 50 years old, he had no material attachment whatsoever. And he left home and went to the forest and was doing his very strong sadhana of bhakti there. So he's the example, actually in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, you're reading right now. It's said there that Bharat Maharaj had a genius for the performance of duty. And so Jiva Goswami is explaining the genius that he had was how in the performance of his duties he could really always be absorbed in remembering Krishna, and by this he became purified, and then he was qualified to leave home and do his sadhana. So that's also 5th canto Srimad Bhagavatam. So on the one hand, really you have to understand that the dovetailing is not the last word. It's a starting thing. But don't think that it's not powerful. It is powerful, but we just don't want to get caught up in that forever. Okay? Next question?
You were speaking last week about at the time of death, the prana is withdrawn back into the Atma.
Yeah.
I read and heard that when we're born, we have a prefixed amount of breaths for this life. So, is the pran always with the Atma? Or when we get a new body, is it a prefixed amount? Or what's the relationship there?
Yeah. The pran goes along with the Atma. Actually, pran is not, it's not exactly that the pran goes along with the Atma in that sense, because you have to understand the constitution of pran. In the Vedas, the word pran and indriya have often been used interchangeably. Indriya means senses, and pran means pran. So why are they often used interchangeably? The reason is because the soul is one atom of spiritual consciousness, and surrounding that are the atoms of the senses are actually atomic in nature. And they contain because they're the product of the Rajagun, they contain Kriya Shakti. Kriya Shakti means the power of activity. Now in the body there is earth, water, fire, air and space. So air, see pran is air. And once a pran vayu, it's air. But air doesn't move by itself because it's a dead element. So what happens is the Kriya Shakti, which is present in the Indriya, enters into the air and moves it. So when air, which is a tamasic element, is kind of electrified, if you like, or infused with the power of passion, rajas, that is the Kriya Shakti of the sense, then it moves. So it's actually the senses which are moving, making the air move, and air which is empowered by the Kriya Shakti of the senses, we call that pran. Right? That is called pran. So it's not a separate element. It's a special transformation of air coming from the contact with the atom of the senses, the indriyas. So what happens is at the time of death, the soul leaves the body and takes the 5, there are 6 actually, because the mind is also one atom, takes the 6 atoms of the senses with him, like that. But once he's disconnected from the air that was in the body, then there's no pran. But the moment then that soul enters into another body, then the senses then infuse the air which is in that new body, make it move, and now it's called pran. Like this. So that's the relationship. So you can read about this in detail. Something is in the 3rd canto in the description of the elements. And that is the teachings of Kapil Dev to Devahuti in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And there it's discussed something called, the creation of the universe is discussed, and something is discussed there called Sutra Tattva. And Sutra Tattva means the prana of the universe. The universe, all the planets are moving as well. So this is all taking place because of the universal prana, which is called Sutra Tattva. And that is the Kriya Shakti of Rajagun acting in the Mahat Tattva. It's called Sutra Tattva. That's the prana of the universe. And when that Kriya Shakti acts on the air within the body, then that's the prana of the individual body. There's another description in more detail also in the 11th canto, Krishna's teachings to Uddhava in the 11th canto. And the specific scientific explanation of the prana and what happens at the time of death you find in Vedanta Sutra. In the second, Vedanta Sutra has 4 chapters. In the second chapter there's a discussion there. And also in the first chapter of Vedanta Sutra, the first chapter of Vedanta Sutra is a discussion of terminology. Because in the Vedas you find statements like Pran is the highest and things like this. And so there's a discussion, well, what does Pran mean as well in the first chapter of Vedanta Sutra. Because sometimes the word Pran is used in a metaphorical sense as well. You see in the last verse of Shikshastakam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, speaking in the mood of Radharani, says, Aslisya va padaratam pinashtumam darshanam ma mahatam karotu va yata tata va vidadatu lam tato mat prananatastu sa evanapa. Oh, Krishna, he's my prananath, he's the Lord of my pran. Like this. So this is kind of metaphorical sense, because here pran is means a life force. In other words, I only live for Krishna. So it's an expression of love. So in the Vedas we find that many words are used, and often it may not be, the sense that we take is not the direct meaning. The direct meaning is called Mukhya Vritti, the direct meaning. And then there is Gauna Vritti, the secondary meaning. So if the first meaning doesn't make sense, we should always take the first meaning. And if the first meaning doesn't apply perfectly, doesn't make sense, then you should go to the Gauna Vritti. The secondary meaning, Lakshan Vritti, Ajahal Lakshan Vritti, and there are so many different ways in which you can interpret a word. But you should start with the prominent one first, and if that doesn't fit, then you can use the other meanings. The classical example is Gangayam Goshaha. Gangayam Goshaha means the village on the Ganges. The village on the Ganges. So that doesn't make sense. If you take the direct meaning, you can't have a village that's actually on the river. And so then you have to interpret the meaning of Gangayam Gosha by the Gauna Vritti or Lakshan Vritti. It means on the bank of the Ganges. Understand? The village is on the river. Yeah, we understand what it means, but we take it to mean it's on the bank of the river, like that. So, in this way, one has to take the statements of the Vedas, following a system of interpretation which is called Mimamsa. So, Pran has been described in all these places. You can go and do a little research. If you still don't understand it, come back. Okay? Actually, it's not easy. Not easy to understand. But when the consciousness is purified, you can see it. We are somewhat indebted to Patanjali. Patanjali wrote the Yoga Sutras. So all over the world now, yoga is very popular. And after people get tired of some years doing the gymnastic exercises, they think, well, what is yoga really about? And then they may read the main text on yoga, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam it said that Patanjali is a great devotee. He's a Mahabhagat. And so he has written something there, from his writing we can know everything, but each of the 6 classical systems of Vedic philosophy, from each one we can learn something. There's something valuable that we take and we add that to our conclusion, to the final system, Vedanta. So, Patanjali is really, of all the sages, he's the great psychologist. He's described all the various functions of the mind. So I used to live in a cave, in the forest, where Patanjali was born. You know the Davasa ashram? So Patanjali is Davasa's brother. the rasa is one of three triplets. Dattatreya Rishi, Durvasa, and Chandrama. This Chandrama is Patanjali. So Dattatreya is the expansion of Vishnu, Durvasa Rishi is the expansion of Shiva, and Chandrama or Patanjali is the expansion of Brahma. So I used to live there in his place. And I very much appreciate how he's explained very finely psychology. Our Vishnacharya Thakur also in Madhurya Kadambini, in describing the what is called the obstacles within the mind, the klesh, the causes of suffering, 5 types of klesh. So Vishnacharya Thakur in Madhurya Kadambini has taken 5 sutras from Patanjali which explain the 5 mental causes of anguish, which are avidya, asmita, raga, dvesh and abhinivesh. So Patanjali has very nicely explained that the mind has 5 levels of function. The first one is called the muddha. Muddha means inertia of the mind. The mind is just dull. You have a late night, you wake up early, and before you drink some coffee, that's muddha. Low brain activity, stupefied. So this is caused by tamagun. And if the energy of in the chitta builds up somewhat, then it comes to the next state that is called shipta. Shipta means thrown here and there. So then rajas, passion comes in the mind after people drink their coffee in the morning, then all of a sudden they wake up and their brain gets busy now. But they can't focus on one thing. The mind is always moving here and there. So that's called chipta, caused by rajagun. Then the next stage is called vikshipta, means the person is trying to practice some discipline of meditation and they have become free from tamagun mainly, almost completely, and they're free mainly from rajagun, but there's still a bit of rajagun in the mind and it makes the mind become distracted. So they're concentrating but they keep losing their concentration. So this is called vikshipta or vikshep, distraction of mind. So Jiva Goswami said, as long as there's vikshep, distraction of mind, anyone cannot enter into Raganuga Bhakti. That means they cannot have a strong desire to serve Krishna like his associates. Because as long as the mind is in a state of vikshep, you cannot even conceive of how the associates of God are serving him. So how will you get an attraction for that? So then the next state of mind is called ekagrata. Ekagrata means one-pointedness, the state in which one has achieved concentration. So this ekagrata, or one-pointedness, means there is no tamasic or rajasic vikar, transformations in the mind. There is only the sattvic vikar. Sattva gun has some transformations in the mind. So in this state of ekagrata, then trance begins to come. And this trance is of 4 types. 4 types. That is called savitaka samadhi, savichar samadhi, sasmit samadhi, and sananda samadhi. So savitarka means that when the rajasic fluctuations have gone from the mind, if you say some word which denotes an object, then when you utter that word, then the object that it denotes appears in your consciousness. Now, actually, all the time when you are perceiving things, you never see the world directly, but rather your chitta, your consciousness, the senses contact the world and send an impression to the chitta, to the consciousness. And then the substance of chitta, consciousness, transforms and exactly becomes the shape of that object. not exactly, but approximately, becomes the shape of that object, and that's what your consciousness is aware of. You become aware of a facsimile of the outer world in your own chitta. Do you understand? You follow what I'm saying? It's just like, let's say someone has a car, one of these expensive SUVs, and they want to reverse. So they just click on, and a screen comes up. And on the screen they can see what's behind them. Right? And so then they can reverse. So they're not looking directly at the object, but they're looking at a replica or a facsimile of the object produced by the electronic screen. So in the same way, your chitta, or the covering of your soul, is like a very responsive screen that, not precisely, but approximately, not perfectly, because our senses are imperfect, but approximately recreates a facsimile of the outer world, and that's what you look at all the time. That's how perception takes place. So that's ordinary perception, but there's such a thing called yogic perception. In yogic perception, the person goes into the state of ekagrata, and then he utters the word which is describing that object. And then by meditating on that object, what happens is the actual object appears in his chitta exactly as it is. Exactly as it is, not approximately. So this is how yogis can get profound knowledge of things without doing scientific experiments. Because they're not dependent on the senses to perceive something, but rather the chitta itself perfectly replicates that, and they can see it and examine it, all of its various features and qualities. So that ability to perfectly recreate an object within the chitta at will is called samapati. Samapati. So, savitak means the stage in which the yogi is examining the gross nature of some object. We can give an example. Let's say there's a teapot, right? So the teapot is made of clay. So you can understand this object in two ways, in terms of its structure and in terms of its substance. You see? And the substance and the structure are two distinct things, or rather can be understood in two distinct ways. Why? Let's say if you put water in the teapot, then it can hold the water, right? And you can tip it and you can pour it and the water will come out from the spout. So these are the qualities of its structure, but these are not the qualities of the substance that it's made of, clay. Why? Because look, if I break the teapot with a hammer, then all the substance is still there, but the function of the structure is no longer there. So that proves that the function of the structure is something distinct from the ingredients. We don't think about it so much because basically people don't think a lot. It took them 5,000 years to realize that we should put wheels on our luggage. So we don't have to carry it everywhere. It's like people are not so bright. So anyway, the yogis have figured all this out, right? All the sages of the Vedic times, they thought very deeply about these things. So there's a difference between the qualities of something's structure and its inherent substance as well. So when in meditation we discover the nature of something's inherent structure, at first it's not perfectly clear. That is called savitaka samadhi. And then when it becomes completely clear and crystallized in your consciousness and you experience it exactly, the thing as it is, that is called nirvitaka samadhi. Then, after that, there's a deeper level. That is called the savichar and nirvichar samadhi. That is when, in the meditation, you enter into the substance. And you can understand the substance of it. So, then, when the samadhi, the meditation goes deeper, it comes to the stage called sanan samadhi. So, sanan samadhi is the state where there is joy. But what is that joy? That joy is that the chitta, the consciousness, if you take your consciousness to be like a laser, generally the consciousness is not like a laser, it's just Consciousness is going everywhere. And just like sunlight right now is everywhere, if you take a magnifying glass, then you collect the rays of the sun together and you can light a fire. The sun rays will not light a fire now, but if you take a magnet and focus them, you can light a fire. So an ordinary person, his consciousness is in a state of vikshepa, it's wandering everywhere. So he cannot properly understand anything. In the stage of ekagrata, it's focused. And now this power comes, samapati, the power to exactly reproduce whatever you want to know. So, in the Savitaka Samadhi, it's making the gross structures of things. In the Savichar Samadhi, it's looking at the subtle essence of the substance of things. Then in the next one, Sananda, the laser of focused consciousness is turned inward upon the senses themselves. And instead of gaining knowledge of a perception, one gains knowledge of how perception works. Understand what I'm saying? How perception works, the atoms of the senses are in the heart, and then they send their Kriya Shakti out with the pran through 72,000 nadis in the body. And then this is how our senses relate information back to the chitta. But in the state of Sananda Samadhi, now instead of objects of the world being the object of your discovery, you turn in and the object becomes the actual mechanics or the way in which the senses perceive things. And by experiencing this, the yogi experiences so much joy. There's much more. If you taste something, you may feel some pleasure. But if you see the way in which the senses actually experience their objects, then everything about the senses is pleasurable then, because it's come to the state of very, very fine sattva gun. You see? So, when you're asking about what is the pran and so on, it's very difficult to understand. But if you come into the state of ekagrata, one-pointedness, free from tamas and rajas, then in that state you can experience the very instruments of experience, what you're thinking of, the instruments of experience, the senses and the pran. You can experience your current instruments of experience, like this. So otherwise, only reading about it will not really give the clear idea. And that's, in many ways, Shastra, the scriptures are like that. The scriptures are there to confirm the realizations of a person as they're going through the various stages. So when a person's consciousness is that pure and they start to experience how their prana and senses are working, and then they realize, oh yeah, right, this is this is not an illusory thing, this is a genuine experience, like that. So there are many descriptions also of bhakti, and you can read them, but anyone can understand. When they get in that stage, that's, oh, no. And in this way they know that they're on the right track. They're still making progress in the right way. It's just like Gurudev said in this regard. He said that if a devotee, advanced devotee, has some fault, so don't see that fault. Don't say anything like this, because actually they have no fault. Fault is in your eyes. And if you criticize, it will be like putting water on an electric wire. Only you'll electrocute yourself, like this. So Gurudev said in regard to this, this is written everywhere in the scripture, but only those who have entered quite far into Madhyam Adhikar, into the middle stage of bhakti, only they will take it seriously. Because when someone comes to that stage, they realize the transcendental nature of bhakti and the very superficial nature of all other activities and external things. Krishna said also in Bhagavad Gita, Api chet sudaracharo bhajate mamananya bhak sadhureva samyak vyavahito hi saha. If a person does even the most terrible thing, they are one-pointed, they serve me only, not Ganesha or Durga or anyone. They're one-pointed in their devotion to Krishna. Then Krishna said, he's a sadhu. But no one takes this verse seriously until they enter into Madhyam Adhikar. Because then they realize the glory of transcendental bhakti. That bhakti is pragalbha. That means very aggressive. And just like a yogi, if a yogi is meditating, and by chance, some accident, they become involved in some sense gratification, they practically have to start from the beginning again, and they lose everything. But if the same thing happens to a bhakta, it makes no difference whatsoever. Cannot touch him, because bhakti is very aggressive. It's very powerful. So I'm just giving this as examples how things are written in scripture, but we have to follow the instructions of our spiritual teacher slowly, slowly, as our consciousness expands, as our consciousness develops and our perceptions develop, then, now we can understand what it's saying. So in the Mahabharata they said, Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhaya mahajano yena gata sapanta. One cannot know the truth by logic and reason. You cannot know the truth by doing so much listening. You cannot know the truth by your own intelligence. Then how will you know? You have to follow the Mahajans. How the great souls are living, how the great souls are practicing bhakti, you have to associate with them and follow them and do in the same way. And then the secrets of Dharma, which are in their heart, they will come to your heart. Okay? Yes?
You were talking about the mind just now, cognitive psychology and neuroscience views mental faculties as brain-based activities. That means the mind is located in the brain.
Yeah.
I've always wondered from a Vedic perspective, what is the relationship between the brain, mind and the intellect?
Yeah. Well, that's a shame you didn't come to my lecture 2 days ago in Waiheke Island, because that was the seminar was called Solving the Mind-Brain Problem, Can the Vedic Scriptures Inform Neuroscience?
Okay.
So that was the lecture. And it was, I made this lecture with a computer, with all PowerPoints and with many videos and things like this. But, so...
Is there a copy of
another time I can show
Did
you.
you copy
I
this
can
one?
show you everything. But did you video it? Did you record it?
Not that. I've got a recording of it.
Oh,
You have.
she has an audio. But you kind of have to see it with the animations as well. But I'll give you just a basic idea. Okay, the idea that consciousness is an emergent property of the brain is called epiphenomenalism. Right? You know that, right? Epiphenomenalism. And the idea that consciousness is a distinct category from matter is called Cartesian dualism. Because René Descartes, he proposed, I think, therefore I am, and that the mind or the self is something distinct from matter, but which resides within matter and guides it. So, those who follow the path of epiphenomenalism or physicalism, materialism, they say that there cannot be such a thing as a Cartesian dualism, because matter functions according to physical laws that we know, and if something from outside the system were to infringe upon the freedom or the movements of that, or control it, move it, manipulate it in any way, then the laws of the science would be broken. It would be a miracle. It would essentially be divine intervention. Right? So there cannot be such a thing as a non-physical mind, a non-physical soul, acting on the physical elements of the brain and so on, because it would break the laws of conservation of energy and so on, like that. Okay? So far so good. Now, on the other hand, those who believe in epiphenomenalism, they also have problems, which they don't talk about so much. So in neuroscience, that's called the binding problem. You know the binding problem? Binding problem means that different parts of the brain are responsible, they've been identified as being responsible for different aspects of perception. So for example, in seeing, one part of the brain processes color, another part of the brain processes the motion, another part of the brain processes the contrast, which makes the edges. And in this way, so that when we see something, we see a composite picture which includes color, it includes motion, it includes distinctions between objects and so on. Now, each part of this composite of the one picture that we see is processed in a different part of the brain. And the mechanisms for that are identifiable. But there are no identifiable mechanisms which bind them all together to make them into one composite. And that is also true of the other senses, whether it's smelling or hearing or touching and tasting. Each part of the brain connected to that has been identified. But why is it? Why don't we feel like 5 different people? One person who can only see, one who can only hear, one who can only smell, like that. No, there must be some mechanism that combines all the sensory perceptions to create the unitary, singular experience of an individual, the subjective being. However, when you examine the brain structure, there is no, we cannot identify anything within the structure which could do the function of combining everything, binding them together into that unitary experience. So in neurology, that's called the binding problem. And it hasn't been answered. Until this day, no one knows how it happens. Some ideas have been put forward in regard to the gamma waves in the brain, which go from the front to the back of the brain about 40 times per second. And so they're thinking maybe these gamma waves in the brain, they're scanning so fast, and that kind of binds everything together. It's an idea, but they really don't have a theory. It's just, perhaps it's something to do with that. How it happens, no one knows. But the Vedas explain exactly how it happens. It's the pran, which is the connecting system of all the gross physical activities, you see? Because pran is the air, the element of air, which has become infused with the Kriya Shakti coming from the atom of the senses. Now, each element is connected to the next one. So you have space is connected to air is connected to fire, right, you see? So the air element, in other words, pran, makes micro adjustments in the element of fire in the body. So the element of fire in the body, that's the first thing which is detectable by any medical instruments, and it's detectable in the form of electromagnetic activity, like that by EEG or MRI, you see. So what happens is, yes, there is intervention, but because it's a micro adjustment, it's outside of the calibration of human measurement. And micro adjustments can make massive macro effects when they're connected through a chain of cause and effect. And so we were discussing the other day in our lecture about the chaos theory, you know, the butterfly effect. Right? So a butterfly does something very small and immeasurable, but it has a macro effect sometime later. So that's essentially how the soul moves the body. And the desires of the subtle body, of the chitta, of the mind, they manifest into, they're translated into the activities of the brain and the body through the movement of pran. You see? So it's just like, let's say, all the houses here, right? They all have water, and they're all connected. But you can't see where they're connected. Why? Because the connection channels for the water are actually under the ground. Right? So it's a little bit like that. So all the parts of the brain, all the parts of the body, they're all connected, but you can't see where the connections are, because the connections are the nadis, the 72,000 nadis, starting of course with Shushumna Nadi, which is the main pranic channel, and then Ida and Pingala, the next two, and then there are 72,000 nadis, and they're like the underground connections between all the functions of the body, by which the soul, which is situated in the heart, becomes conscious of the entire body. You see that? So that's described in Mundaka Upanishad. Eisho nur atma chaitasa veditavya yasmin prana panchada samvishesha pranachitam sarvamotam prajanam yasmin vishuddhe vibhavatyesh atma. It said, it is one's duty to know the soul through pure consciousness. The soul is floating in the region of the heart upon the pran, which is divided into 5. By the 5 functions of the pran, the soul becomes aware and feels to be pervading the entire body. And when the chitta, the consciousness, becomes purified from its involvement in the pran, which is rajasic, then the glory of the soul is manifest. Yasmin vishuddhe vibhavati eish atma. The glory, the vibhav, the glory of the soul is manifest once the chitta becomes uncontaminated from the rajas of the pran. So the whole system of our physiology, how it works and how self-realization is affected, is all explained in that one verse of the Mundaka Upanishad. You can find Srila Prabhupada also quotes that in Bhagavad Gita, in one of the purports of Bhagavad Gita also. Okay, so that's the relationship, how the Vedic paradigm perfectly explains the phenomena of neurology, of neuroscience, which the answers the questions that they can't answer, and they'll never be able to answer, because they're you know, there's a Buddhist kind of proverb. Once a man, he was looking on the ground underneath a street. It was night time, and there was a street light, and he was looking on the ground there. And someone said, "Oh, what are you looking for?" He said, "I'm looking for my keys." He said, "Really? Where did you drop them?" He said, "Over there." He said, "Why are you looking here?" He said, "There's no light there." So modern science is like that. They're looking only in the places where it's possible for them to look. In other words, where the light's shining. But the thing that they're looking for is not where they're looking. It's in another place. But they don't follow the process to make that investigation, because that's something that you can't sit there with a pipe. You see all these philosophers, you know, like and psychologists like Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung and Jacques Derrida and Michel Foucault and all these famous philosophers and psychologists, and they're all there with something on their pipe. You know, what are they doing? They're polluting their pran with tobacco. How are they going to understand anything? Right? Because the tobacco gives them a buzz, so their brain gets hyperactive and they can think up new ideas. But they refuse to look in the place where things can be found, and that is, they have to purify their pran, purify their chitta, and with a pure consciousness, they'll be able to look where the answers are. Okay? Thank you, Prabhu. Any other question? Yes, Venu.
A question in relation to the talk you gave at Balaram's the other night, and you said the Devas wake up Vishnu.
The Vedas.
Sorry, the Devas.
The Vedas. The Vedas personified.
Yes.
Yeah.
They wake up Vishnu before the material creation happens.
Yeah.
How can they be in existence before the material creation happens?
I did mention that in the lecture. It said in Shastra that Dharmam tu Sakshad Bhagavat Pranitam, which the general meaning is that the laws of Dharma or the laws of religion are not concocted or fabricated by human beings, but rather they emanate from the breathing, Bhagavat Pranitam, from the pran of God. They emanate from the breathing of God. So it said that when the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu is in Yoga Nidra during the annihilation, during the dissolution of the universe, he's in Yoga Nidra, and then when it's time to recreate again, the Vedas emanate from his breathing. And then those Vedas personified, then they offer prayers to, and they wake him up like this. So, that is not at the time of the the Prakritic Pralay, the complete dissolution of everything. That is just during the night time of Brahma. At Brahma's night, then he goes to sleep, and then everything enters into the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, not the Mahavishnu. So the actual the egg of the universe is there, which is emanated from the body of the Mahavishnu. Many of them, they've come out. The egg of the universe is, and then Mahavishnu enters in as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and Brahma is on the lotus stem like this. The Brahma goes to sleep, and everything is dissolved. And then he breathes out and the Vedas come, and then the Vedas offer prayers, and then again. And then Brahma has to recreate, following the directions of the Vedas. So there are 4 types of annihilation. One is called the Prakritic Pralay, and that's when Mahavishnu breathes in. And all the universes are completely dissolved. That is Prakritic. Then there is the Naimitic Pralay, the destruction within the egg of each universe that takes place at the end of each one of Brahma's days, after 1,000 cycles of ages. Then there is the Nitya Pralay, that means the total destruction of the universe that takes place millions of times every second. That means Maya creates everything, destroys it, and recreates everything, and destroys it, and so many times every second. that you don't even notice. But each time it's recreated, it's slightly different. You see? Each time it's recreated, your face looks a little bit older. Your hair gets a little bit whiter. Your belly gets a little bit fatter, like this. So this is how age goes on. No one can stop this. Because there is what is called the Nitya Pralaya, the momentary creation and destruction, and it's total. Srila Prabhupada himself describing this, he gave an example of cinema. When you're watching a cinema, it seems like everything's moving, but actually nothing's moving. If you slow it down, there's stills, and every still is different. You're actually seeing one picture, and then that's taken away, and then the next picture, because it's in a row like this. So you see one picture and it goes, and you see another picture that's slightly different than another one. So it's not that you're seeing, you call it a movie. Nothing is moving. It's an illusion. You're seeing many stills coming one after another. So in the same way, it seems like everything is growing up or growing old, but nothing is growing. You're actually experiencing many, many stills, but you feel as if everything is growing, and that's called Maya. So the function that does that is called the Naimitic Pralaya. So we've discussed the Prakritic Pralaya, Naimitic Pralaya, the Nitya Pralaya, that goes on every moment, Nitya Pralaya, and then there's Atyantric Pralaya. Atyantric Pralaya means the once and for all absolute total destruction of everything material. One may say, well, when does that happen? That happens when you get Krishna Prem and go back to Godhead. That's individual. It's not for everyone. It's when a soul is liberated from this world and goes to Golok Vrindavan, to the spiritual world, then for him there's Atyantic Pralaya. It's the once and for all, everything about material nature is thoroughly destroyed, subjectively for that individual jiva, though it may continue for the others. So these are the 4 types of pralaya explained by Krishna to Uddhav in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a lot of tattva jnana in the 11th canto. And it's necessary. Those who read the 10th canto, the pastimes of Krishna, but then afterwards don't read the 11th canto, then they're in a great danger. And the danger is that they will develop a prakrit or a material conception of Krishna's pastimes. And so their understanding of Krishna and his lila must be purified by a very, very exact and precise tattva jnana. And this is why in Srimad Bhagavatam, after Shukadev Goswami explains Krishna's pastimes, then again he comes back to the tattva jnana, the philosophical principles, to steady that realization that it will become pure and shining and perfect. And once that is done, once connection with the world has been severed, then you can forget tattva jnana forever, just be fully in the forgetfulness of Krishna's godhood, in Raglan Bhakti. So Krishna actually says that to Uddhav. He said that you have to sharpen the axe of tattva jnana, and with that sharp axe, cut your connection to the soul's connection with the world. That's the astral body. You have to cut it, and once you've cut it, put the axe down and forget about it. You don't need that again afterwards. Any other question? Yes.
I'm a bit confused about, and it'll probably come out very confused, but I'll try.
Okay.
In Jayavadana, he's explaining how Krishna's qualities, or his, in terms of anga and angi,
Yes.
and talks about that beauty is the
Anga.
anga, and then there are the angi, but then knowledge and renunciation are only qualities of the angas or something.
Yeah.
So you can see I'm confused.
She's Anupam is bringing up a discussion from the book Jaiva Dharma by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and there's an analysis of the word Bhagavan, which is important. You know, Bhagavad Gita means the song of Bhagavan. So Bhagavan means God, but what does that mean specifically? So in the Puranas it is said, Aishwaryasya samagarasya viryasya yasasasya jnana vairagyasya sanam bhagamitingana Bhagavan or God is defined as that person who fully embodies 6 qualities. First, Aishwarya. Aishwarya means the ability to be the biggest and simultaneously the smallest. Anyone cannot do it. We're all kind of middle-sized, right? But that person who is the biggest, in whom everything exists, and also simultaneously who is the smallest, who resides inside everything, can be called God, Bhagavan. So that's the first quality, Aishwaryasya. Samagrasya, Viryasya. Virya means strength. Strength particularly means Shakti, power. Who is omnipotent, who has all power, and especially this quality of being having all virya, all power, means Achintya Shakti, inconceivable power. Inconceivable power. That means the power to manifest contradictory qualities simultaneously. So God is like that. God is, though He's the biggest and also the smallest, He can also manifest in this world in a medium-sized form and walk among us and speak Bhagavad Gita. This is inconceivable potency. And even though He's right before us in a medium-sized form, still everything is within Him and He is within everything. And Arjuna saw that in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 11. Arjuna said to Krishna, "Oh, please show me how you reside within all aspects of the universe." So then Krishna blessed Arjuna, "I'll give you the celestial eyes by which you can see it." And then Krishna manifest Virat Rup. He showed the whole universe to Arjuna all at once. Not only did He show him situated within His own form, not only did He show Arjuna the entire universe, but He also showed him the past, the present and the future. And beforehand He told Arjuna, "I'm going to show you something you'll be very interested in seeing." What is that? See, before the battle he was worried. Oh, maybe people will get killed. So when he looked in the form of the universe inside Krishna, he saw the future there. And he saw the outcome of the battle before it happened. It was already there within the universal form of Krishna. And he saw all the warriors on both sides. They are rushing like moths into a flame and being devoured by the jaws of time. And then Krishna said to Arjuna, "Nimitta matram bhavasavya sachin." He said, "Arjuna, you are worried about whether you should fight, you should not fight. But I'm telling you, everyone on this battlefield is already dead." Because God is the embodiment of past, present and future. He knows everything. So in one sense, from His divine perspective, the future is already over. Even though it didn't even start for us. Understand? So Krishna said to Arjuna, he said, "Look, everyone's dead already. And all I'm asking you to do is just become an instrument of my will. I want to use you as an instrument to achieve my aims and goals in the world of destroying the unnecessary military forces which were a great burden to the world at that time." So, then seeing this, Arjuna became relieved of his ego, his ahankar. Because before he was thinking, I am the doer. Shall I fight or shall I not fight? And I am doing. But when he saw the universe form, he realized that Krishna is doing everything. I was in illusion. All things everywhere are nothing but Krishna's energy, and Krishna is doing everything. So he became freed from illusion. After that, Krishna told him, "Surrender to me." He did not tell him, "Surrender to me" before that. Because if he told him, he would not understand. Because he had too much ego. But after his ego had been relieved, saying, "Wow, I thought I was doing everything, now I understand I'm not doing anything at all. Krishna is doing everything." So being free from ego, then when Krishna said surrender, he understood what it meant. Completely his soul, just to give his soul to Krishna's will, entirely, without any personal selfishness or consideration. So, this is called Achintya Shakti. Aishwaryasya samagrasya viryasya, then yashasa. Yasha means famous. The third quality of God is He's all famous. So someone may say, no, I think that some singer or movie star is more famous than Krishna. So all the people of the world know certain famous people, but they don't know Krishna. So how is it said that Krishna is all famous? Here the word yash doesn't mean fame in the way that you think. Here yash means that his fame or his glory is mangalmoy. Mangalmoy means completely auspicious. In other words, if you just get touched by the glories of Krishna, if you hear the glories of Krishna even for a moment, your whole life changes and becomes auspicious. So that's the real meaning of fame. The regular people, the famous people of this world, they're not really famous. If you hear about them, then what happens? Your life becomes more inauspicious. Okay? So that's not yash. Only Krishna has yash. Krishna, and he makes his devotees also be full of yash as well. Like Yashoda. Yashoda means one who gives yash to others. So we have Aishwarya, Virya, Yasha, Aishwarya, Shaswarya, Virya, Yasha, Sriya, and then beauty. Beauty is the next quality of God. Krishna is most beautiful, most attractive. And then we have Gyan, that means knowledge. Here knowledge means to understand Atma Maya Sambandha. Atma Deha Sambandha. What is the relationship between the soul and the body is called Gyan. Jnana Yoga is only for that. Jnana Yoga is for discriminating between matter and spirit. So what's the relationship between Atma, the soul, and the body? That's called Gyan. So Krishna has all Gyan and all Vairagya. Vairagya means detachment. When you understand what is the relationship between your soul and your body, then you become detached. Because there's no relation. Soul and body have no relation. Only we feel that there's a relation. That is called Maya, illusion. You see? That is illusion. Srila Vishnu Thakur gives the example. The relationship between the soul and this body is exactly like rabbit's horns. Have you seen rabbit's horns? No, because they don't exist. So the relationship between your soul and your body is that. It does not exist. Only in your mind. You can imagine horns on a rabbit, but actually not. It has no external reference. So, in the same way, we imagine that we have a relation with this body, but there's no external reference, there's no reality, substance to it. So that is called Maya, illusion. And to be free from that is called Gyan. And this is why it said that first of all, of these 6 qualities of God, one of them is Anga, and the other, one of them is Angi, and the other 3 are Anga, and then the last 2 are not even his qualities at all. I'll come to that. So Anga and Angi, what does that mean? Anga means a limb, and Angi means everything, the whole body. So the relationship between Anga and Angi is the relation between the limb and the whole body. So the limbs make up the body, but any individual limb is not the whole body. So in the same way, the qualities of having all power, all Aishwarya, all fame, these are only the qualities they are the angas of the Angi, beauty. Beauty is God's main quality, and the others are aspects of God's beauty. Now Gyan and Vairagya are just like the aura of Yasha. Do you remember reading? They are the effulgence of Yasha. You see? Because why? When you hear about the glories of Krishna, then simply hearing his glories and chanting his glories, a light emanates from those glories, which makes you come out of illusion, which is Gyan, and makes you become detached from the world, because you know you have no relation with the physical world. You see? So Gyan and Vairagya are like only the aura of his quality of Yasha. But they're not positive characteristics. Rather, They're not positive characteristics, they're like the negation of something negative. Is it clear enough?
Much more. Thank you.
Any other question? Don't be shy. Any question you have, you can pose without any fear or hesitation. Do you have a question, Kana? No?
How to maintain, no, how to, like sometimes you hurt those closest to you. How to avoid those. Well, not hurt, no, that's not the right question.
How to avoid hurting people? Be very humble. if you're always humble, when you're in an argument with someone, just say to them, actually I think you're right. And then what will happen? If they're right, it's good, and if they're wrong, they'll make a mistake and they'll have to suffer. And then they'll come back to you and say, no, actually you were right. So just give way. Always give way. We want to control everyone and force our will out of ego, thinking that we are the controllers, but God is in control. So we can express something, if someone doesn't like it, then oh, you are right, and just let it be. And God will, if they have a fault, God will correct it. It is not our responsibility to correct everyone's faults. One should not see faults in others. Try to see your own faults. Only Guru is given some license by Krishna to find faults in his disciples. Because they come to the spiritual master, they come to their teacher for that very purpose. Oh Gurudev, I cannot see my own faults, please help me. And so, then he may see fault. But this is not his nature. This is Krishna's mercy coming through and correcting that person. Otherwise, any devotee does not see faults in anyone. Okay, if there are no more questions, we'll sing again. We invite everyone, again please come to our ashram in India. We have a parikrama in Kartik, the month of Kartik, October the 8th to November the 7th. And then after that, for 6 months, we'll be running the educational programs in Braja and also visiting many places like Jagannath Puri, Navadvip Dham, Jaipur, and Udupi, Srirangam. We'll make a big festival at the beach in Goa as well in January when it's too cold to be in Vrindavan. So please come, make your 6-month visa and come and stay for 6 months in India.